Hello and welcome to Voices of Fostering. And today on the podcast, we're going to be joined by one of our lovely members of staff from the National Fostering Group, one of our carer recruitment officers. This is Hazel. Hello, Hazel.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. So Hazel, a carer recruitment officer, we talk about them a lot on the podcast, but for maybe somebody who hasn't listened to one of those episodes before, tell us about the role and what it is that you do.
Well, there's a few parts to it, I guess. Obviously, as you'd imagine, with the job title, I help people who are interested in fostering, and I support them through that journey as they go through the assessment process to become improved foster carers. So I'm there right from the start of the process. So I'm that main point of contact locally in our area, answering questions, chatting to people. I do that first home visit so that I can sort of get to know people a little bit better and hopefully give them lots of information to hope that they're in the right place and have got enough that they can make the right decision for them and their family of whether they want to move forward and foster. And then once we get into that assessment process, I'm kind of there behind the scenes,
Yeah.
holding their hand along the way, really, and making sure that they're happy and they're feeling supported throughout. Um, Once people are fostering, I'm definitely, as I always say to our applicants, I'm not going to vanish. I'm always there in the agency helping out, and I help, plan events and attend support groups, and it's sort of a big part of our team, really, and ensuring that our foster carers are feeling well supported and appreciated.
Yeah. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But firstly, I'm quite interested to hear about you, Hazel, and what led you to fostering. So you work with NFA Southeast now, don't you? So what was it that led you to fostering, really?
It was interesting, really, because I worked in travel for many, many years, and during COVID, unfortunately, I was put on to furlough. Well,
Yeah.
I suppose it could class that as being fortunate because a lot of people weren't so
Yeah.
lucky. I specialised in selling safaris. I managed a small safari company, and overnight, every single destination that I sold went on the red list.
Yeah.
So essentially, I didn't have a job to do. So I ended up being furloughed for 18 months. And over that time, it kind of gave me some reflection. And I'd lived for 9 years in South Africa, and I'd seen there kind of, what challenges there are with that kind of big gap between people who have and haven't, and the struggles that they had with children who were in unsafe homes. And I did start a social work degree when I was there, but life happened. I was doing that part time, working full time, and then found out I was having my daughter. So I ended up having to give up halfway through. And it obviously was there in the back of my head all that time. And then this job role came up, and I wasn't sort of actively looking. And I thought, wow, this sounds really interesting. And there we are. The rest is history.
So did you feel like it just really fit your morals and values, really, and what was important to you?
Yeah, I think I'd reached a point where I was like, I really want to do something that feels meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And the more I learned about fostering and the more I understood it, the more I felt that aligned with kind of something that I felt that I wanted to get on board with. And I think over the past 3 years of doing this job, I've never doubted that for a minute. I love playing my part, and it's only a very small part. Our foster carers are at the core of it all. But helping people who want to go on that journey and hopefully then in turn helping more children is what it's all about.
Yeah. And when people are starting on that journey, Hazel, what do you think is the most important thing? I suppose being open minded really is very important, isn't it?
100%. And I think if I would say one thing to someone who's thinking about fostering, don't think of all those reasons of why you think you can't. You know, we will talk to you about that. Sometimes people automatically discount themselves. I can't do it because of this. I can't do it because I don't own my home, or I'm a single carer, or I don't have my own children, or whatever it might be. But it's almost like they're trying to talk themselves out of it. And we have a whole system in place to try and help people understand about fostering. We have massive amount of training, and then we have a process that ensures that we're having the right people who get approved as foster carers. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone or go online and watch a video or chat to someone, don't discount yourself. That might not be the case at all. Every single child out there that might be needing support is unique. So every fostering household is unique. So there's always a fit somewhere.
And I think it can be quite a gradual process, can't it? Like it might take somebody a few years of just slowly educating themselves and slowly drip feeding it into their psyche, I suppose, that it's what they want to do. And then they wait for the right moment, really. But is there ever a right moment, Hazel? Do you think people should just go for it?
I think in some respects, yes, definitely. I mean, I think it's like when you become a parent, they always say, don't they, if you wait for exactly the right
Yeah.
time and for
You'll be waiting
everything to
forever.
be,
Yeah.
perfect, you maybe would never have children. And I guess there's an element to that with fostering. I think it is important though that timing is right for you because it is a massive step. So I guess it's a balance of the both. I mean, we've got foster carers in our agency. I know I can think of someone who's been fostering for about 5 years now. But I know that before I was even part of NFA Southeast, she started assessment, but she dropped out and then she'd gone back later and then been approved because it hadn't felt like the right time.
Yeah.
So, you do have to think really carefully about timing. And sometimes, people will say to me, actually, you know what, now things have happened and it's made me think it's almost like the stars have aligned and it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But but don't ever think, oh no, I couldn't possibly do it. I think, it's a balance between making sure you are ready, but also, like you say, you don't want to put it off forever thinking because of this, because of this, because of this. So.
Yeah. And Hazel, there are lots of different types of fostering, aren't there? What are some of the types of fostering that maybe one, people aren't aware of, and two, we need more of?
I think a big one, and I notice this when I go out to events or I do visits, is parent-child fostering.
Okay.
I think there's a lack of information or understanding. Sometimes people don't even know that exists. So that's definitely something I really kind of try and spread the word about a little bit. I think people are not aware about it.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more about a parent and child fostering situation though. Are we talking about a teenager maybe, is it always the mother? What sort of scenarios are we looking at?
I would say predominantly it's the mother, and it tends to be younger mothers that might need support, but by no means is that the only sort of scenario that might come up. We have mums and dads.
Yeah.
In a foster home with baby, we have just dad. We do sometimes have older parents. It just depends on their individual circumstances. But ultimately, what the aim of parent and child is to support a parent who would like to be able to independently care for their child, and we're giving them that chance to learn the skills that maybe they haven't had because they've not had a positive example, or because they're really young and they've got no support network out there to help them. And ultimately always what we want is for parent and child to be able to stay together. So if we have that opportunity to give them that chance, then, it's an amazing thing.
So is the parent always under 18, or sometimes are they adults, but maybe they still need some support? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they can be adults as well. And it's a really interesting dynamic for a foster care who specialises in parent child, because essentially you're often working with children at opposite ends of the age scale. You've got this, it can sometimes be up to toddler age, but often it's a really young baby and potentially a teenager or a young adult. And so their own unique challenges are completely different from each other, and you're trying to support both of them.
Yeah, I imagine all of it's really rewarding, but I imagine that's particularly rewarding to help somebody on their way to being a parent, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's actually interesting. I visited one of our foster carers some time ago now, who does parent and child, specialises in parent and child, and she took great pride in taking me into her lounge, and on her wall she had a photo of every single child that she'd supported.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
And she literally, and it's over years, and she told
Yeah.
me she could tell me exactly about every single child, what happened, what their
Yeah.
names were, what their
Wow.
experience was.
Yeah. So, Hazel, you're part of NFA Southeast, and I imagine that's quite a busy agency, isn't it? There's a lot going on. What are some of the things that are sort of additional, really? You know, the things you can get involved with. You have an awards ceremony, don't you? Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. We do actually a Carers Awards evening every year to celebrate our foster carers, and that gives them the chance to have a nice adult night out. But my favourite event is 100% the Children's Awards, and we do that annually. And that gives our agency, our staff, and our foster carers the chance to celebrate the children and young people in their care. And it can be their foster children, but can also be their birth children as well. And I think that's really important. We recognise that because the children that are in the home and they've opened their home up to another child and essentially they're sharing their parents. They're they're a huge part of that as well. So we love to celebrate that and we look at all of those achievements. It can be big things educationally or sporting wise, but quite often it's those little things. And I think it's those things that we take for granted, but in a child's life, they can feel like a huge thing.
Yeah. And just picking up there what you said about birth children, Hazel, are they very much part of the assessment process if you do have birth children?
Yes, yeah, very much part of the assessment process. And I always make it, really clear to our families that, you're fostering as a household.
Yeah.
And everyone, is involved and everyone has to be a part of that. And any children or young children in the home will be spoken to by the assessor in an age appropriate way and ask for their thoughts and their understanding about it all. And also any adult children, even if they're living elsewhere, will also be spoken to. So it is part of a big and wider process.
Mm. And you sound so passionate about your job, Hazel. It sounds like it's just the perfect job for you. Do you find that that's how the National Fostering Group recruits? Like they make sure they recruit people where it's more than just a job?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I don't think you could work in fostering unless you've got a passion for it.
Yeah.
It's not an everyday job role, and I'm not going to lie, it can be an emotional roller coaster because I'm with my applicants every step of the way, and I feel all of those ups and I feel all of those downs, the same as when our foster carers might be having some challenges. So emotionally, I'm probably put through the ringer, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
And what would you say your favourite part of the job is, Hazel?
I think, I'm a people person, so I love meeting people. So I love hearing people's stories, whether that's people I've gone to visit who are interested in fostering, whether that's our foster carers. And I'm so fortunate because we have some incredible carers in our region and they're always happy to invite me in for a cuppa and share their experiences with me. And that really helps me get a great understanding to be able to then support those people who want to start at the very beginning of their journey. And then when we do have the events and things, I see the children that they're supporting and I can see the good that we're doing every day to provide that love and safety and security for children that might need it, whether it's a short amount of time or a longer amount of time.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there are lots of children in the care system who do need our support. If there was anybody watching or listening who was thinking about inquiring to become a foster carer, but maybe they're a little bit unsure, how would you encourage them to go for it, Hazel?
I think it's just about biting the bullet and going for it. I think don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for information. But also, if you're a little bit nervous about speaking to someone, we've got great resources. So, our website has podcasts, videos, information. You can sign up for one of our online information sessions. We have a couple of those a month. And, you don't even need to sit, if you don't want to, you don't even need to sit there with your camera on or your mic on. You can literally just sit and listen.
You'll probably see me on some of them.
Interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We love it if you
Absolutely.
do. But, by no means do you feel like you have to be kind of putting yourself,
you can just learn
of everything. It's a learning process. You just want to gain information and sort of pick up as much as you possibly can. But I think nothing beats an actual face-to-face or even telephone conversation with someone, like myself. I've got counterparts obviously at all our agencies across the country. And we, as you can probably tell, we love nothing more than chatting about fostering and helping people kind of learn and provide information for them.
And finally, Hazel, what does it mean? Like, what difference is someone going to make in becoming a foster carer?
They make a massive difference, and I see those differences every day. And I mentioned, obviously, we chatted a little bit about the children's awards, and when I do my home visits, the one thing that I nearly always say to people to kind of try and make it more real for them and gain them an understanding is, I really clearly in my head remember a situation where a child went up to get an award at the children's awards, and she is with a lovely foster care of ours. She lives with her sibling. And when they first came into the foster home, she was scared of everything. She was probably, I don't know, about 4 or 5, something like that. She wouldn't even walk up the stairs on her own, daytime, nighttime, whatever. And she'd always shared a room with her older sister because that's what she was comfortable with and what she was used to. So although she had her own room, she didn't want to use that, which is fair enough. And it was probably, a good amount of time in when she was really starting to feel settled and safe and secure. And one day she just said to her foster care, "I'm ready." And she moved into her own bedroom. And for me, that sums it up. And it always makes me feel emotional, even now when I think about it. And I think, you know what? If anything sums up a moment, is what fostering is all about. For her, that was it was a huge step. And for her foster carer to feel like, I must be doing something right, because
Yeah.
she's now feeling so safe and comfortable and secure in her surroundings and with me, that she can take that little step into independence and have her own bedroom, is a huge thing. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes we forget that it doesn't feel like much to us, does it? But as a child, and
Yeah.
especially a child who's gone through a traumatic time, for her, it was a huge part of her life. So yeah, that's
So by being a foster carer, you can make such a positive change to young people's lives, can't you?
yeah, no, absolutely. And sadly, the reality is there are a lot of children out there that do need safe and loving homes, and they need support. And the more people that we can find that might be a good match for those children, then the better life, this life will be for those children. And whether it means that they're there for a short while and they return to their family, or whether they're there for a longer amount of time, for that period of time, giving them safety and security and love, it's all we can ask for.
Thank you so much, Hazel. And it's so fantastic to hear that when people do reach out to the National Fostering Group, they get somebody lovely to guide them through the process like you. So thank you so much for all you do. And thank you so much for chatting to us today, Hazel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to find out more, head online and search National Fostering Group and make this the year you foster.